you don't always you may have a preconceived idea or just kind of what you've heard. And so just in general, the guys at all skill positions, but even wide receiver, like you're asking, just their it's kind of their, I guess, ability to lock in and buy into what we're doing, want to be good, and knowing that a lot of those guys have really done anything from terms of like a production standpoint. Some have done some and played in games and done some good things here or there, but from a consistency standpoint, maybe whether they haven't been playing as much or they just haven't gotten to do it yet, just we saw potential. And so probably what I was thinking is just the potential of our skilled players was promising, and that we feel like, we have some guys that care, they want to be good, and we can hopefully work with and find ways to fit in what we're going to do. And obviously missing 11 spring practices and whatever else time we're missing doesn't help that development, but we feel like there's some guys that can develop into good football players and give us a chance. And so that's really what I meant by that, is just, I felt like after only 4 practices, and again, only 2 in pads, and that's a very limited sample size, that as a coaching staff, we felt like we have some guys that we can work with, and hopefully, as long as their attitude stays the way it was. Those guys communicate. It's hard. Obviously, we're doing it here, right? This whole, distancing physically makes it a lot harder to, maybe develop those relationships in a personal level. But I know he stays in contact with the guys, both in the quarterback room and at other skill spots. For all of our players, we can't work them out. We can't make them do anything. And so a lot of this is on them to be kind of self-motivated and self-starters. And, fortunately, a lot of our guys, I think, have done a lot on their own to try to stay in shape and stay ready. That's what we've preached to them is, at some point this thing's going to break to the point they're going to let us get back to work and get ready for first season at some point. We don't know when that'll be, and we got to be ready. And I think he's, like a lot of our guys, done a good job of that. And I think it helps him being a guy that's, has some maturity, played college football now for several years. So I think he kind of understands the value of, staying in good shape physically and all that, being ready. But also for a guy like him that was new, was trying to develop relationships. This is just like anything else, man. This is just some adversity in regards to trying to get that done. But he's got a good positive attitude of, you don't worry about the problems. You just, control what you can control.
Coach, we have David Ferrones from the South Florida Sun Sentinel. David, if you had a question for Coach Lashlee.
All right, back to back, David.
David, man.
Coach, how you doing?
Good. How are you?
Good. Kind of a current events question. I want to ask your thoughts on the NCAA making a move toward potentially allowing student athletes to profit off of their likeness, marketing, things like that. And also kind of a fun question along those lines. Who on this team, now that you've gotten to know their personalities, would be most marketable, do you see?
Well, that's a great question. I don't know if I'm really qualified to answer that one. I think at the end of the day, from the NCAA on down to the presidents, ADs, and head coaches are going to, find a good probably landing spot for that topic. I think it's a very relevant topic in a situation that, college athletes are there's a lot asked of those guys. Whatever they come up with, those are the parameters that we'll work with. Make the most of it. As far as our guys, I have no idea who's most marketable. I just hope coming into this football season, that's a good problem we have, that a lot of guys are marketable.
Coach, next up we have Matt Shodell from Rivals.com. Matt, if you had a question for Coach Lashlee.
Yeah, hey, Coach Lashlee. Thanks for doing this.
Your name's not David, so let's see what
I know. Well, you can call me David if it's easier. So, when you guys do get back to work, you may only have a month to prepare, and, you're a new offensive coordinator. Is there any way that you can figure out in advance? Because, spring football is supposed to be about, okay, let's try to figure out a little bit of a depth chart, get an idea. You don't have that. Like, is it even possible to go into that 1 month period potentially and saying, okay, here's who I think should be the starting offensive line, let's just go with that because we have to? Or do you still spend a week out of that month saying, let's figure out our starters? Like, have you thought at all about how to do that?
Yeah, we have. I mean, that's a great question. And, look, first of all, I think anything's possible. So, we're kind of in a wait-and-see pattern right now in terms of, I think we'll know something, sooner than later, I hope, on, hey, this is at least a preliminary plan if things continue to go the way they are. But yeah, the wheels are turning, and what we're going to have to do is definitely going to be different than normal, and that's okay. We all got to do it. I look at it, we were fortunate we got 4 practices, 2 in helmets, 2 in pads, and so for a new staff, that was really good for us to learn a little bit about our kids. Did we learn all the info we needed? No. But we at least have something to go off of other than just our initial thoughts, and so it gives us a better chance at educated guess. I think it was good for our kids to learn us at least enough to know how we coach and how our demeanor is and the expectations, everything from the way we want to practice and how we want the offense to go. They at least understand that. And so, but there's no question, look, it'll be determined by, hey, you've got 4 weeks, or you've got 6 or 8, probably how we go about that. But there's no question it's going to be different than, quote, normal, and that, for example, we got a quarterback competition going on, or we got competitions on the O-line and receiver. Really, for us offensively, we got competition going on everywhere, and we're going to have to make decisions quicker probably than normal in terms of the amount of practices or data we had to go into that decision because depending on how much time they give us, you got to get ready. But I look at it like this. We're football coaches. It's our job to get done whatever they put in front of us. And if they want us to play on September 3rd in the Walmart parking lot, then we got to find a way to get that done.
Coach, we have Mike Cuneo from WFOR. Mike, if you had a question for Coach Lashlee. Oh, hold on one second, Mike.
I really don't hear when it's on mute, so.
Gotcha.
There we go.
All right, Coach. I wanted to ask you, you mentioned some of your skill position players. I want to ask you about Brevin Jordan, tight end. He's been such a big part of the offense lately. How does a tight end and a weapon of his caliber kind of fit in?
I think it's going to fit great. Both, he and Will Mallory and some of the younger guys we have, like Larry and Hodges, and it'd be good if we had a good shooting guard. But Larry Hodges and Dominique, the freshman. I mean, we had some guys that were doing some good things in spring. Obviously, Brevin was out of that. He's getting healthy, which is good. But I just looking back at what we want to do offensively, I think those guys fit what we're trying to do. Where I was last year, our tight end led the country in touchdown catches, and I think he was 4th in yards and catches and all some of those stuff. So, he was an explosive player for us. And to me, those guys, I look at them, they're real versatile pieces to what you want to do or what we want to do offensively, playing with tempo but still being able to be multiple in our formations and our looks that we give the defense without substituting. The more versatile and athletic those guys are, the better. So I would like to think you could argue our system fits athletic tight ends as good as anybody around the country. So we're really excited about Brevin, Will, and all those guys.
Coach, we have Manny Navarro from The Athletic. Manny, if you had a question for Coach Lashlee.
3 straight Davids and now 3 straight M's. You're all out.
Systematic.
Hey, Rhett. Good to talk to you, man. Hope all is well with the family and everybody. I wanted to ask you specifically about the freshmen because obviously you had a boatload of them in the spring, and I wanted to get just your evaluation. I know there's only 4 practices, but what you thought of each of those guys, maybe the progress that they made, and what you've maybe learned about them through all these Zoom meetings you've been having with them since.
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, I'll be very honest. I'm always very it's more to protect kids than anything. I'm always very cautious on, saying a lot of great things when guys are young, just because I think sometimes that can set really unfair expectations for kids in terms of singling them out. But I will say this, this was the coolest thing I've ever seen, in that so many, really every offensive signee was here early. And that doesn't happen often. Usually you get 1 or 2 or a quarterback here or there. So to have all those guys was going to be huge. It still is big. They've been on campus. They've gone to class. They got that kind of icebreaker part of college out of their system. They've had 4 practices. So whenever we do get back to practice, they still would be ahead of where they would have been had they not. But, I think the staff did a really good job, and a lot of those guys they brought in. I mean, I don't know if there's anybody that we looked as a coaching staff and said, man, we wouldn't have wanted that guy, or we didn't think he was a good fit for Miami. So I think we got some young talent that we're excited about as coaches, that they're going to come in and from day one, all they know is what we want to do offensively and the kind of things we want to get accomplished in the culture and the disciplines and all the habits we want to create. It's kind of a clean slate for those guys with us. And what we saw early was good, both from their mental ability to their attitude to obviously the skill sets that they had. So we're really excited about that class.
Coach, with Barry Jackson from the Miami Hurricanes. Barry, if you had a question for Coach Lashlee.
Hi, Red. Obviously, last year, Tate Martell spent a few months at receiver, now has transitioned back to quarterback. It's, of course, too early to know if he'll be one of your top 2 quarterbacks. But if he's not, have you given any thought to how his skill set might be able to be used if he's not your number 1 or number 2 quarterback? And have you discussed that with him?
I have not discussed that with him. You know, he's fully involved in trying to be the starting quarterback here at the University of Miami. I know that's, you know, his first love and passion and what he's done well for a long time in his life. You're right. I mean, 4 practices is hard. And like I was answering Matt's question earlier, I mean, at some point they're going to tell us, here's how much time you have. And we may be making some decisions without near as many, you know, sample sizes as we thought we would have had. I'll say this, whether it's Tate or anybody, I mean, it's our job to get the best players on the field. And if we think a guy like Tate or anyone else can help us, you know, I'm all for that. I mean, I think back at, you know, when I was at Auburn and even when I wasn't even the OC, we had a guy in Cody Burns. You know, we had a guy named Cam Newton come in, and he ended up being a pretty good quarterback. And a guy like Cody Burns, who had played some in the past couple of years, selflessly moved to receiver. He was a really good athlete. And, you know, all he ended up doing his senior year was catching the first touchdown pass in the national championship game. And so, you know, whether it's Tate or other people, you know, we're going to have to make those decisions quicker than we probably wanted to. And if Tate's the guy quarterback, great. And if he's not, then if he can help us elsewhere, then we're not going to limit ourselves offensively. We're going to try to get the best guys out there. Believe, man. I mean, we don't need any guys that are arrogant, but you want guys that have that borderline confidence level that they feel like they can go out and beat anybody and do anything. After that, then you look at, okay, well, how strong is his arm, and can he do this, and can he do that? Look, if he can make all the throws we want to make, if he's accurate enough, I think accuracy is more important than arm strength. But, you know, both are great to have. And then I think the more athletic the kid is, the better. And I think there's a difference between being athletic and being a runner. You know, by athletic, Shane Burchell, who was my quarterback last year, was a great athlete. I wouldn't say he's a great runner. You know, and I tried to get him all year to have a run over 30 yards, and he never could get longer than 29. So, you know, he just couldn't make it happen. But he's a great golfer, and he was a good baseball and basketball player in high school. I mean, a good athlete is different than he can run a 4.9 and be a really good athlete. But I think that just helps guys be good quarterbacks with getting the ball in their hands, extending plays, moving in the pocket. So, you know, every situation is different. I think the second question had to do with where we recruit guys from. Is that correct?
Yeah, just the fact you offered Texas quarterbacks, you know, stuff like that.
Obviously, I can't speak to any specific names, you know that, but quarterback's kind of one of those things that no matter who you are, you go national or you go local, you find the best guy. It doesn't really matter. And there's going to be years that South Florida's going to have a lot of quarterbacks, and there may be years it doesn't. It's the same way everywhere around the country. It probably didn't hurt that I'd been in Texas the last few years, so I had some familiarity. But we're going to always try to find the best fit for the University of Miami. You know, I know if you can have a South Florida kid be the starting quarterback, that's phenomenal. But I also know a lot of national championships have been won here with guys outside the state. And so we're always trying to find the guy who wants to be here, who wants to lead at a place like University of Miami where the expectations are high. And so it really doesn't matter to me where they're from if they're the right fit. And what was the last question?
Just if you were open to taking 2 quarterbacks this cycle.
You know, I never say never. I think your goal every year is to try to take one. In a perfect world, if you could take one quarterback, that freshman gets to come in with that class and kind of develop that continuity with that class and those things. But at the same time, to ever come out and say we're going to only take one or we're only going to take 2 or 3, I think you can kind of limit yourself because things happen, right? Kids transfer, people get hurt, people move positions, whatever. And so we're always going to keep our options open to do what's best for the University of Miami. But I think in a perfect world, you go out trying to get one, which is kind of where we are right now. But you know, sometimes things look different in October than they do in May. And so you always have to be able to adapt and adjust.
Coach, we have Ruthie Polinsky from NBC6. Ruthie, if you had a question for Coach Lashlee.
Yes, Coach, thanks so much for doing this. Curious about just kind of how you're navigating the uncertainty with the players. Just kind of like if there's an overarching message that kind of is keeping the guys positive, or, you know, it's a tough time for everyone, let alone like an 18-year-old that's so excited to go play Division I college football. Is there some sort of like message that you guys are sending to the players to just kind of keeping their heads up and keeping them motivated?
Yeah, I mean, it's a great question because it is hard. I mean, it's hard enough on our own, right, for all of us to deal with it, even those of us that have been blessed to stay healthy and all those things. But these are 18 to 22-year-old kids, and for us, most of them scattered all across now. And so, this is the best interaction we get with them is something like this Zoom. And I think the best thing we try to do is just not wear them down, but stay connected the best way we can. I think community and relationships and communication is the best thing you can do at a time like this for all of us. We've done that with our players to do the best we can to not lose that touch. And just, I think, one, be honest and real, but also keep a pretty positive outlook. I mean, we get to choose our attitude every day, and we choose to be positive, and that the odds are at some point, we have no idea when they're going to say we're going to go play a college football season. And it's not our job to determine when and where, because we can't control that. What we can control is when that happens. What did we do during this kind of, weird quarantine time to be prepared for when that does happen? Because like Matt said, it could be in a month. They say you got a month to get ready. You got 3 months to get ready. And that's what we can control. So we've tried to stay positive, let them know that the odds are always high, that at some point we'll play a season. We don't know when it'll be and who against it'll be or where. That doesn't matter. But when it happens, we need to be ready. We've tried to, like I said, just keep as much contact as we can, keep them focused on short-term goals. Like right now, they're starting finals. So that's really all they need to worry about is finals. They don't need to worry about, when are we practicing and throwing footballs. But it's challenging. It's challenging to keep it fresh and not get stale and do the same thing over and over again. So, you try to find different ways to make these 15 to 30-minute meetings we have with them different. And for the most part, I think our guys have kept pretty good attitude, mindset. But you're right, they're getting antsy. I mean, this is a lot of them, their dreams, what they love to do, and they're anxious to know, are we going to get to do it, and if so, when? So,
Coach, we've got a couple more for you. This is Clay Ferraro from WPLG. Clay, if you had a question for Coach Lashlee.
Good afternoon, Coach. You mentioned earlier about De'Aaron King and having that ability to deal with adversity because he is a little bit older guy. How much does something like that potentially help him and then help the rest of your offensive squad right now as you're in this unprecedented situation?
Yeah, I think it definitely helps him because of the experience. And there's probably no secret that, guys that have played some, whether it's him or guys on our roster that have played in meaningful games, are probably going to have a little bit more of an advantage than the guys who really needed a lot of, 11 more spring practices to develop and et cetera. So I think experience is something you can never discount. At the same time, look, if they were to say you guys have a month to get ready, as long as we knew our guys were physically in the condition they needed to be in, the football piece will take care of itself. Everybody's going to have the same amount of reps. I think it'll lend itself to, the teams, the coaches that, try to keep it simple and do what's best for the players instead of, maybe try to overload them are probably going to have success. But experience is probably, those teams that have been together for a long time or have experienced veteran players returning, I would think would have an advantage. That's a good point.
Coach, with Daryl Streeter from Footballville. Daryl, if you had a question for Coach Lashlee.
Coach, how you doing today?
Hey, good, Daryl.
Coach, a few weeks that we interviewed a few offensive players, they all said the same thing, that the offense was simple. They understood it with a smile on their face. What is your philosophy on conveying information to kids and getting your point across? And also, could you tell us a little about Cameron Davis?
Yeah. Who'd you say that at the end?
Cameron, the running back.
Kentucky. Cam Harris.
Yeah, Cam
Harris.
Cam
Okay.
Harris.
I think first and foremost, our job, we're teachers. I mean, coaches is another word for teachers. We're just teaching something different. I think our job is to always communicate to guys the best we can to try to make things simple where they can understand them. And I think sometimes in coaching, right, it's easy for us to say, man, we could do all of this, but it's not what we know. It's what they can know and what they can go understand and execute. That's what I think sometimes it disconnects when people can watch a TV and go, well, why don't they just do this? That seems so easy. Well, it may be easy to us or to the person watching, but is it easy to the kids, or is it easy for them to execute at a high level consistently? And so I think it's our job to teach them in a way that they can understand, try to make something that is maybe calculus seem like basic arithmetic. And anytime we can do that for kids, I think I've said it a bunch, that allows them to play fast mentally and physically and their abilities take over. And so I think that's our job, to understand, one, what's kind of that fine line of, okay, we need to do enough to have the ability to do schematically what we need to do, but also keep it to where our guys can be successful. And at the same time, whatever we do decide to do, teach it to our guys in a way that they can understand it at a high level. And then at the end of the day, you are what you repeatedly do in life, right? And repetition's the mother of all learning. So the more you can do the same thing over and over again, if you get a kid in 4th and 9 for the game and you have him run a play he's ran 3 times versus a play he's ran 100 times, which one do you think he's got more confidence in? And so while the one he's ran 3 times may be such a great call for the defense, and the one he's ran 100 times may be just okay, you may have a better chance of executing that one he's ran 100 times against an average defensive look versus the one that's a great call, but he doesn't have the same level of confidence or ability to execute on. And so that's always that fine line we try to walk as coaches. And Cam Harris, I mean, only 4 days. He's an experienced guy. He's a big physical guy. He runs downhill behind his pads. And, I know he's working extremely hard. I thought he seemed like a really tough kid the 4 days I was with him on the field. And he's definitely a guy that we're hoping can kind of raise his level and take his game to the next level for us this year.
Coach Lashlee, thank you very much for joining us today, and stay safe with your family. We look forward to chatting with you again soon.
All right. Thanks, guys. Appreciate your time.